What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Misty Portal. This is the second part of the campaign Brainstorm. If you haven't watched the first part, you could probably watch this without it, but it probably won't make as much sense. You can go check out the first part on the YouTube channel. So let's jump into it. Honestly, I haven't really even looked at this since I did a little bit of rearranging after the last campaign Brainstorm. All I did was just order things a bit differently on the layout here. So it makes a little bit more sense and it's a little cleaner this way. Okay, so let's just do a quick review. We got the story arc, introduction of villain as an ally, ending with the big reveal of the villain. So basically, we're using the villain to be the big main campaign hook, and it was going to also help drive some of the story, and even I believe we were going to have the, as it says right there, we're going to have the villain be an ally for a while. So something that can be really fun to help create a lot of tension between the players and an NPC. Okay, so the villain itself, depth, complex backstory, character will develop the campaign. So, as I just said, the character will help to develop the campaign, and we want to give the villain a complex backstory, something where, and depth, where you can relate to the villain. And it's not just this black and white, oh, you're a bad guy, I'm a good guy. Good guys take bad guys out. No, it's more than that. Relatable characteristics, exactly, right here. So he's got positive traits, she or she. Has parents. That was a vague one, but something to keep in mind about people is they were babies at some point and they have parents, and a lot of time the circumstances they grew up in created who they are today. So give them, that's part of those relatable characteristics. Good smile and laugh. So, physically you're looking at this person and it's like, this person doesn't look evil. They don't have scars on their face and sharp teeth, red eyes. Make them relatable. Has something the players seek. So that was a good way to get the players to want to interact with this character. When you're running campaigns, oftentimes you think you set up this perfect trap or a perfect character that players will interact with, and then you can use that interaction to trigger something. And then sometimes the players don't even go near that person, or maybe you present that NPC and the players are like, we got other stuff to do over here, and then they maybe forget about them. So dropping in something that players would want, or perhaps are seeking for another quest, is a good way to get them to interact with that character. What's the motivation to do evil? He wants to save his love. Which I think everybody can somewhat relate to that a bit. Not necessarily wanting to do evil to save his love, but maybe through time it just gets to the point where he loses it, and maybe he was good at one point, or neutral, or something besides evil. He just wasn't this evil character. He fell into this evil role because of circumstances throughout his life. And, the camel, or the straw that broke the camel's back, was something to do with his love. We've got heroes, players, powerful allies. and then we also have setting, world, universe, city, spaceship. So let's just finish this up by getting a little bit more detail and feeling like we have a good starting point for our original campaign. So let's think of a villain name. I think a villain name is always something to not to be overlooked. So, a name is a lot. When you hear it, it can bring you emotions. It's I feel like you don't want to put a ton of importance on it because it is just a sound of that person. But I still feel like a cool name is something that can resonate with people. And especially when you're throwing 150, 200 different names, or even thousands of names at your players throughout a campaign. Having a good name for a solid character is great. Maybe you have some throwaway names for side characters and characters that don't really do a ton, but a main story villain, yeah, let's do this. Human male names, there we go. So let's use this. I think let's make the villain a human male. And when I think about the villain, I want a badass name. Something, like we said, something memorable. Maybe something that could instill some sort of fear or tension when heard. Like, perfect, Joffrey. What does anybody think of now when they hear Joffrey? If you've seen Game of Thrones, you know Joffrey is the little blonde king kid that everybody hates. Look, it's even on here twice. So Joffrey, wow, Joffrey just stole that name. It will be a long time before anybody thinks of anything else for that name. I kind of like this one, Sin. Sin? Sin, as in sinning. You could think of it that way. Cinder. I kind of like Cinder. Cynder. Could be a last name, could be a first name. Let's just put that down. I like Cinder. Just curious what else they've got. Okay, so they've got Elvish, Halfling, and Dwarvish names. So not a giant, robust selection, but good enough. Hammond Wake. Interesting that there's only one name that has two names in it, a first and a last. Oh no, there's another one. Wismgare. Okay, Hammond Wake. I kind of like this Wake. Cinder Wake. That's kind of a cool name, actually. Cinder Wake. Okay, good enough for now. There's plenty of times where I've thought I settled on a name somewhere and then I see it again a week later and I slightly change it a little bit. But Cinder Wake seems like a pretty memorable name. Could be intimidating, but I like where we're headed with Cinder Wake. And then he is a human male. Boom. Okay, so let's go a bit more into the backstory here. I don't think we have to get too detailed with it, but what gives this character depth? What gives Cinder his depth, the complex backstory? I would say born in a small town. Only child. Do we go with the trope of his parents were killed. Let's do something a little more interesting. I think that's easy, and a lot of people think about that for their characters. I think we do something like, how's about mother joined a cult when he was, let's see, in his early teens. Left the family for the cult to never be heard from again. So you could tie things up with the story of his mom and say, oh, she died in the cult, or she was killed later on or something. But I think leaving it somewhat vague is not a terrible idea, because it's something that you could come back to later. And, you know, maybe at some point his mom comes up in the story. I don't know. But if you leave it open, there's room for other things to happen. So we'll say maybe like father lost his mind after the mom left, and drowned his sorrows in, what could we say? We could say drink, obviously. That's a common one. Maybe solitude. Drowned his sorrows in solitude. Solitude and silence. So basically he just ended up wanting to always be alone and ignoring Cinder as he was growing up. So that's, you know, you're going with the same trope of somehow your parents fuck you up, but it's not just, his parents were killed in an accident or something like that. You're giving a little bit more flavor to it and a bit more reason why Cinder would possibly be leaning towards an evil side, even as a younger kid. Yeah. And then we can develop him throughout the campaign as he's, you know, possibly fighting alongside the main group. I think that's something that will give the group a lot of respect for this character before he turns around and reveals he's the villain. You know, if you throw him into the fire with the characters at some point and take him out into the world where they get to see him fighting and, you know, maybe helping them. If they lose a character, he brings one back, or maybe he goes down and they bring him back, and they start to tie this tight bond to him, and they have that bond of, oh, we fought with this dude, we lived with this guy, we went through trials and tribulations with him. It ties that bond together, and then boom, you reveal that he is the villain, and then everything that they think is shattered. Fun stuff. I feel like this is something that maybe makes it into my campaign at some point, my current campaign. Obviously, I have everything written, and I've already got a beginning and an end and the major stories, but this would be fun to throw in as a little side story. Okay. That seems good. I like that. Relatable characteristics. He's got positive traits. Once again, he's got the parents. He's got a good smile and laugh. I will say he has something players seek related to a quest. I don't think we need to go into too much more detail about that. That's something that could be sorted out later. But that gives them a strong motivation to go interact with this NPC and get their relationship started with him. I think that's pretty good for positive traits. Motivation to do evil. He wants to save his love. Let's kind of sort this out a little bit. I think this could be a big story point. Especially, maybe he goes into a monologue, and at some point, Cinder is explaining to the group, "Hey, this is why I'm doing this." I think that's a big deal, and as a DM, it's something you really want to keep in mind when you're RPing Cinder and trying to get your group to feel for him and to kind of be on board with his story a little bit. So wants to save his love. Let's see, motivation to do evil. We'll say the love of his life. Maybe it's the only one. Keep that in mind. And here's I think something that people could relate to. The love of his life. Someone who he never spoke with, but watched from afar for fear of losing someone he loved. So, obviously, his relationship with his parents created this wall, this subconscious wall of, I don't want to ever fall in love again because I've seen what happens. I don't want to lose someone that I love. So maybe that's what this whole thing is about, is he finally finds someone that he loves again, but he's too afraid to ever go talk to that person. And then he finds out that that person is in danger, and that's it. That's the turning point for him is, oh, no, you can't treat this person like this. I love this person. And that's what sets him off. That's, love is this emotion we all have that is indescribable. It is also not rational. You don't think rationally when you're in love. So I think love is one of the strongest emotions and a good one to get Cinder to kind of snap and go over the edge. Let's say the love of his life, someone who he never spoke with but watched from afar for fear of losing them. And then let's tie something to this, like what is it that will make the players side against Cinder? My thought is something to do with maybe the love of his life is being betrothed to another against their will. Could be an arranged marriage. Could be, I think, an arranged marriage when you have maybe a king, let's say. So let's say, let's see. King's daughter is arranged to marry a prince of a far-off land where she will be shipped to live her days as the princess against her will. I don't know. That seems like another trope to me, something very obvious, but it's not terrible. I think it's good enough for now. We could always go back and change it a bit so it's not just this is just something I see a lot. Okay. And I think that is his motivation to do evil. And when I say evil, let's clarify this. Motivation to maybe he kills the king. Maybe motivation to, I like that, assassinate the king. So that is definitely not how you spell assassinate. So I think what a good thing to present would be have the king be in some sort of a relationship with the group, whether it's kind of this peripheral thing off to the side or they have directly interacted with the king. Presenting the king as a relatively noble and good person, and maybe this is his one flaw, and even you can't even say it's a flaw because there's so many times where, hey, this is just what happens in kingdoms. But I think as a culmination to, and a trigger, this would probably be the trigger here. We could even write that, like, here's the trigger. His motivation to assassinate the king is the trigger for the group to go against Cinder at some point. Whether they find out about his plan to assassinate the king, or he actually assassinates the king in front of them, perhaps, and then that leads to the final battle, the reveal of Cinder being the main villain, so on and so forth. That seems like the trigger moment where you reveal to the team, oh, this is him. This is the bad guy. Heroes and stuff, I think we don't need to go into too much detail. That's all stuff that definitely comes with more writing, especially when it comes to gods and demigods. You know, are you creating your own pantheon? Are you going to use the D&D pantheon? Do your players even care about gods? For instance, my players in my campaign haven't really interacted with gods at all, and the only time gods have come up, they have kind of scoffed. So I don't really mess with gods, even though they're in my setting. They're not really a major part of it. And setting, it seems to me like this would be a fantasy world, probably like a D&D. We'll just say fantasy world, 5th edition. As we've got a king, we've got a kingdom that he lives in, another far-off kingdom that she's being, or the princess of that kingdom is being married to the prince of another. It sounds pretty fantasy-like to me. I mean, I suppose you could say it's in space, and maybe the far-off land is a different ship, or perhaps a different world entirely, and these are people that travel through space. But for me, this feels to me I'm seeing a fantasy world, and it would be 5th edition style. But I feel like that's pretty solid for a Brainstorm to get started. I really hope this has helped you to come up with your own original campaign brainstorm. And feel free to ask questions, elaborate on stuff down below in the comments, and even share with us your ideas if perhaps you were coming up with your own brainstorm alongside or after you've watched this. Share your ideas for your brainstorms. It's always good to see what other people do and, see what their ideas are. The one thing I love about hearing other people's ideas and seeing them is that it triggers my brain. And it's like, oh, that's cool. Oh, wait, hold on. That gives me an idea for my campaign. And then you might just start going off on something entirely that you never would have thought of if you never heard that. So, yeah, share with us your ideas. And even if maybe you just change some of the things that we've done here today, I would be really interested to see the paths that you took. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope this helps you get started on your original campaign. And hit that sub button if you like what you see. I hope you come back soon. And thanks for watching.